Hi everyone, and welcome back for another episode in our UE4 tutorial series in making an equipment system. In the last episode we managed to get our character to equip items from the inventory component. However, we only done this behind the scenes. We haven't actually made anything graphically or stat wise change on the character based on those equipped items, which is what we're looking at today. So in this episode we'll be covering those details. Now, prior to this episode, I have found and imported already in a texture of a helm that I'll be using for my leather helm. So you will have a thumbnail for each of your items. Now, to show this item, we need to go into our data and change something on our armor data here. So open up the armor data, and in here we need to make a new variable. And this variable will be called thumbnail. And this is simply just going to be storing the actual thumbnail itself. So here I'm going to call it a texture type of a texture 2D, like so. Click save and close that down. Now if you open up your equipment CSV, you will see the thumbnail slot has now appeared in our spreadsheet. And now for each item you can go into the thumbnail and choose which thumbnail it will use. Click save and close it down. So now we've got the thumbnail. We now need to be able to show that thumbnail on the expected slot. So when we click on the slot inventory content, we're adding that equipment to our equipped variable in our inventory component, which we've done in the last episode. We now need to be able to get from here and add it to that slot. So to do that, we need to open up our armor slot here, and this is the slot that we will see on our character sheet. Inside your button we'll need an image, so drag an image from your palette into your button, and it should appear a little white square. To make the square fill the whole space, click on fill over here, and on your padding set that to 0, and that fills the whole entire space of that button. Click compile, and we're done here for now. So when we click on it and we go into equipped item, we need to tell the armor slot to look at that equipped item map and find the armor slot, the armor details that are attached to it. So go back into your armor slot here, go to your graph, and we'll make a new event here. So right click and look for add custom event, and I'm going to call this one refresh slot, and we're going to call this slot once at the start. So on the construct here at the very end we're going to go refresh slot, and it will also be called every time we are adding an item to our equipment. So let's first of all just get the slot to add an item thumbnail to our slot. So on the refresh slot here we're going to get the player character, because that is where the inventory component is found. However, this returns a generic character, so we need to cast that to our third person character, the specific one we want, and as third person character get the inventory component. From there we can get the equipped armor map, and what we're doing here is go find, and this will find a specific entry in our map based on a set key, and the key is a slot type. So drag your slot type variable out from your variable list onto the blueprint and connect it to find. This will return true or false if it is found, and if it was found, the actual data itself. So for the data itself, if I right click and do split, I can find my thumbnail pin here. I will also see my image that I added over here on the left hand side. Drag your image out and choose get, and from there we're going to set brush from texture. The texture will connect to your thumbnail, and that simply just tells it to use the texture found here as part of the brush for the image. Click compile, and we are done here. So to show you this working, if I hit play and click on my leather helm, even though it doesn't update straight away, if I close it and reopen it, you'll see the leather helm option now available. So what I want to do is make it so it updates that character sheet straight away, so I don't have to close it. So for example, if I click on leather helm, it doesn't appear, but it is actually there, because if I close it and reopen it, it appears. I want that to appear straight away. So that refresh slot function that we made needs to be called as soon as we click on that button. So to do that, we are clicking on our slot inventory content here, and here is where we're saying equip the armor, but we need to be able to get access to that slot it's associated to. We don't currently have it as part of our variables, which means we haven't set it as anything here, and the content here belongs to a slot inventory, and the slot inventory doesn't have the specific slot that it's associated to, just a slot type, which is not what we want. We want an exact reference to that slot. So on my armor slot here, when I click on the graph, if I find my on clicked here, it's going to get the slot inventory, create a slot inventory widget here, and you can see we are adding the slot type to it. What I also want to do is add the slot itself as a reference to my slot inventory widget. So if I go into my slot inventory, go to graph, add new variable, and add an exact reference to it, so I'll call it my slot, and we'll call it a armor slot, and the armor slot, let's just change that to armor slot. There we go. Armor slot is save the reference. We want to make it public and also make it exposed on spawn. So when we click compile and go back to our armor slot itself on the graph, where we've got this create slot inventory widget, if I just change it to none and back to slot inventory widget, you'll see this armor slot is now available to it. And from here, I can just type in a reference to self. So now I've got my slot inventory storing a reference to the slot. That's great. But what else can we do? Well, we need to eventually get to the button part, which is the slot inventory content. So in here, I'm going to do something very similar. I'm going to add a new variable and call it armor slot. And the variable type is an armor slot. Click compile. Make sure it's exposed, so public and exposed. So that makes it appear when we want it to appear. On slot inventory here, on the graph, find your create widget, which is over here. Just set it back to none, then back to slot inventory content, and you'll see that armor slot has now appeared as an option. So I'm going to drag that into there, like so. So now I've got a reference going up the chain, so that allows my slot inventory content here have a direct reference to its slot that it belongs to. So when I click on this, I want to drag my armor slot out here, and then from there I can call that refresh slot function, like so. So when I play it and hit there, you'll see it updates the slot already. Now I may want it also to destroy the slot inventory itself. So on my slot inventory content, when I click on this, I want it to delete that slot inventory itself. Now again, I'm going to need to get my actual reference to my slot inventory, because I don't have a reference already. So go to variables, slot inventory, and we're going to get that reference, change it to the data type slot inventory widget. There we go. Public and expose on spawn. Compile. Go back to your slot inventory. Find that create slot content here. just back to none, back to content, and here I can set reference to self and click compile. So now I can go back to my slot inventory content, onto its graph, drag my slot inventory out, choose get, and then from there I can go remove from parent. And that should, in theory, remove it. Like so. So now I can set my various equipped items to my slots. But it doesn't actually change any details down here. Well, I need to do something very similar to change my stats here too. So to change the stats are handled on the actual character sheet. In this get health and get mana function. So here I'm getting reference to this data. So this data needs to change on the actual character itself, and that character is here with those various stat variables on the left hand side here. So what I want to do is when I've equipped an item, I want to update and refresh these stats. So we're going to need a custom event in here, very similar to what we've done before, and that is make a refresh stats. And this is going to just force the game to look at the inventory component, look at the equipped items, and change these stats accordingly. So on my inventory component here, I'm going to drag that out and get equipped items, equipped armor. And this is going to give me the map. Now I want to go through every single one of these and add to my strength, agility, and so forth. So what I want to do is I want to be able to go to keys, and now give me the list of all the keys I have to it. And then from there I can do a for each loop, like so. And so this is going to go through each of those keys in that equipped armor map, and for each of those keys I'm going to get the equipped armor, look at the stats associated to it, and set those stats accordingly. So I'm actually going to make a function for this, because this could get quite messy. So let's make a function and go update stats. So my update stats, I'm going to set an input for this for the we'll do slot type, and that'll be armor type. And with the armor type here, I can search for my specific equipped armor. Yes, so we're going to go into update stats, pull that out into that for loop, and drag your array element into that slot type there. Click compile, go to the update stats function, and then from there we can get the inventory component, get equipped armor, and from there we can find the armor associated with the slot type, and from there I can split to see the various stats I have available to it. So those various stats there, I now need to set to each of these here. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to pull in these various details here, and I could just do a sequence. Actually, a sequence might be the neater way of doing it. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So strength, could do first. Agility. Actually, no, we need to add it to it, don't we? Doit. So go strength, get, add, float, and that would be the strength from here, and then we're going to set strength. Like so. And we'll do this for each of the stats. It's not entirely, there's better ways of doing it, but we'll carry on as we've started out. In hindsight, probably a struct would be better, but nonetheless, we'll keep going. Add that to there. Let's just try and make this tidier. Like so. Intellect. Stamina. Like so. We've got armor and mana, so let's do the mana one. Armor's going to be a little bit different. We'll do some sort of calculation for that one. Just try and tie this up a little bit. So mana, set, mana, get, add, integer, and the mana, it comes from the armor, like so. Plug that into our sequence. So every time we update the stats, it's going to go through the equipped items, find the equipped item we've got, and set that up and add those values to it. What I want to make sure though is I don't want to keep adding those values and compound them, otherwise if we can keep equipping the same item over and over again, it'll just keep making numbers go higher and higher and higher. So what I want to do is at the start, when I refresh the stats, is set them all back to 0. So on update stats here, before this happens, we need to set them all to 0. So here I can just do a very simple strength set, agility set, intellect set, stamina set, and finally mana set. So all set back to 0, and then it go through each of the slot types, calculating the new stats, and that should hopefully pull through to our widget. So let's have a look at that and close that, push play, and add the helmet, and it hasn't updated here. So let's have a look and see what went wrong. Oh, we didn't actually call the refresh stats event. So to do that, we need to, on the equipped items, and when we go into a equip inventory component, equip item, we want to get the player character, cast to your third person character, and then from there refresh their stats like so. Compile. Let's test that out now. And there you go. You can see the stamina has increased by 4. And mana's 0. Intellect 0. I can't remember what we actually set for this. Let's have a look. Data. So, armor 20, strength 0, stamina 4, mana 0, intellect 0, agility 0. So it set it all correctly, and we can tweak this a little bit more. So we can see strength here. We can change that to 15, for example. Mana to 30, intellect to 1, agility to 24, whatever. Click save, and hit play. Equip that item, and you can see all those numbers change at the bottom there, which is excellent. That's what we want. So the benefit of having it as a CSV means that we can have this data, say, stored in a database somewhere online. So if I were to tweak numbers of my game, I don't have to give them a new patch or anything like that. I just go into my database, tweak these numbers, and the game will be able to access it and change on the fly. And there you go. That's basically how we make it change the stats that we see on our character sheet. If you like this video, you want to see more of this series, head over to patreon.com/Ryan Loney, just like these fine people have, and show your support. Over there you get access to videos early, voting privileges, access to Discord, access to alphas and betas, project files, loads of other stuff too. Thanks very much for everyone supporting me. If you want to, make sure you subscribe to the channel to see future episodes, and don't forget to check out our live streams happening weekly nowadays. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.